The chair is pleased to recognize the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Lofgren, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My apologies for being late. I had a competing meeting, but I do think that this is a very important discussion. I understand Mr. Nadler raised the issue that I've also been working on of a need to update ECPA for our current technology times. It's been a long time, and there are certainly privacy issues that need to be addressed, and certainly some of the assumptions that Americans have about the privacy afforded their digital data is not, in fact, adhered to under the legal standards. And so that's something that I hope to help address as time goes on. I'm wondering in terms of as we deploy throughout the world, whether there are issues that we also need to address on standard setting for interoperability and portability of data when it comes to cloud computing. Something I've not heard discussed at all, and yet I think it's pretty obviously something that needs to at least be attended to. Is that a am I misadvised to be concerned about that?
I think that's very correct. I think there's two key types of portability that have to be considered. The portability of user data. You can rapidly see adverse effects if cloud data or user data is stored within a given provider, and users or businesses are essentially held hostage and unable to extract that data later. The other thing is the portability of applications, the services that essentially are the cloud. If a government agency or a business is too reliant on a single provider's proprietary infrastructure, it may find itself unable to migrate out to either another provider in the case of a service issue, or be left without an alternative solution in the case of a service failure.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested as well. I think some of the security issues have been dealt with, but I think there's an overlap between maybe for lack of a better word, security issues and interoperability. And I wanted to raise the issue of, I'll use the U.S. as an example. We recently took an action, we as the United States government, against a site alleged to be a big pirate site, Mega Upload, but in a way that's also cloud computing. I mean, it's not what we think of in the business world, but that's what it is. Have you addressed the issue of governments aggressively enforcing property rights when it comes to cloud computing that then disadvantages other users? We've heard, for example, that there are why somebody would store their baby pictures on Mega Upload. I don't know, but apparently some people did, and now their baby pictures are going to be toast. Have we addressed that issue as a group that thinks about it, how we can protect innocent users when there are enforcement actions?
Ms. Lofgren, I'm totally familiar with the Mega Upload case, and I know that there are some pending proceedings both at Justice and in the courts, of which I'm not privy to.
Right. I just use that as an example. You don't have to talk about that case.
Look, I think one of the questions is, given the scope of some of what I would refer to as just storage facilities, and how to ensure that you have protection for the legitimate data that's stored, recognizing that you still need tools to be able to deal with the illegitimate data that may be stored, or the hosting entity. And I think it's going to take a balance of laws. What's important, though, is that you still have to have tools, both civil and criminal, that allow you to take actions.
Well, I'm not arguing that case, but nobody seems to feel any responsibility towards people who are completely innocent here. And there's no standards, there seems to be no interest or obligation to innocent bystanders to this action. I'm wondering if there isn't something that we ought to do to address that issue.
I can't suggest an answer to that. I think that's a legitimate,
How about
it's a legitimate question you're answering. I mean, we had as BSA, been engaged in a lot of notice and takedown activity with Mega Upload, and there was certainly some illegal software that was part of that.
Sure.
And there's now been, we both independently and obviously through justice have had some recourse, but I can't go beyond that to talk about.
Well, let's just use it as an example, not that.
Without
case.
objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for an additional minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If any of the witnesses have a suggestion on whether we shouldn't have some standards so that innocent bystanders, if you will, have some recourse and rights, I would be maybe off calendar eager to hear them.
I'd like to speak to that if I may, Congresswoman. I think the key is an alignment of existing privacy and criminal standards with regards to search and access, regardless of the location or the nature of how data is stored. You highlighted ECPA earlier. An email is treated differently when I print it out and put it in my desk than it is when it's on my computer, than it is when it's on Gmail server. That alignment, along with a bit of international consistency, I think will solve the problem for both businesses and consumers. Mega Upload is a case that, for example, highlights the use of mutual legal assistance treaties to create a coherent and enforceable regime. But if those standards aren't consistent with regards to data type, regardless of technology, and if they're not consistent internationally, there'll be a lack of transparency and a perceived lack of protection for users' data.
The time
Thank
the
you,
gentleman
Mr.
has
Chairman.
expired.